In the heart of ancient Britain, a story of defiance, courage, and vengeance was forged in fire and blood. This is the story of a queen who dared to challenge the might of the Roman Empire. This is the story of Boudica. Around the year 43 AD, the Romans, under Emperor Claudius, began their conquest of Britain. For years, they pushed deeper into the island, subjugating tribe after tribe. But some, like the Iceni in what is now modern-day Norfolk, chose a different path. Their king, Prasutagus, decided to ally with Rome, becoming a client king. This arrangement allowed the Iceni to maintain a degree of autonomy, a fragile peace in a land under occupation. Prasutagus ruled alongside his wife, a queen whose name would echo through history, Boudica. For a time, this alliance held. The Iceni paid their dues to Rome, and Rome, in turn, left them largely to their own devices. Prasutagus, hoping to secure his family's future and the continued independence of his people, made a fateful decision. In his will, he named the Roman emperor as co-heir to his kingdom, alongside his 2 daughters. He believed this would protect his legacy, a gesture of goodwill to ensure Rome would respect his family's rights after his death. He was tragically mistaken. When Prasutagus died around 60 AD, the Roman officials on the ground saw not an opportunity for partnership, but for plunder. They ignored the will completely. Instead of respecting the treaty, they moved to annex the Iceni lands, declaring the kingdom Roman property. Roman financiers, who had lent vast sums to the British aristocrats, called in their loans simultaneously, plunging the tribal nobility into financial ruin. But the humiliation didn't stop there. Roman soldiers seized the property of leading Iceni tribesmen. When Boudica protested this blatant violation of the agreement, she was subjected to the ultimate degradation. According to the Roman historian Tacitus, our main source for these events, Boudica was publicly flogged, and her young daughters were brutally assaulted. This act was more than just a personal tragedy. It was a profound public humiliation designed to break the spirit of the Iceni people, to show them that their queen, their royal line, and their very identity meant nothing to Rome. But Rome had miscalculated. They hadn't broken the Iceni spirit, they had ignited it. The outrage spread like wildfire. Boudica, a queen, a mother, her body scarred, but her will unbroken, rose to lead her people. She was described by another Roman historian, Cassius Dio, as a striking figure, tall with long flowing red hair, a harsh voice, and a piercing gaze. She wore a golden torque around her neck, a symbol of nobility, and a multicolored tunic. Over it, a thick cloak was fastened with a brooch. Holding a spear, she addressed her people and the neighboring tribes who had also suffered under Roman rule, like the Trinovantes. Her speeches, as recorded by Roman historians, were powerful calls to action. She spoke of the injustices they had endured, the theft of their lands, the crushing taxes, the enslavement of their people, and the horrific violation of her own family. She contrasted their freedom-loving past with their current servitude. She was not a queen fighting for power or wealth, but a woman and a Briton fighting for liberty and avenging unspeakable wrongs. Her words resonated deeply. Tens of thousands of warriors flocked to her banner. A massive rebellion was born. The timing was perfect for Boudica. The Roman governor of Britain, Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, was away on a campaign hundreds of miles to the west, attacking the Druid stronghold on the island of Mona, now known as Anglesey in Wales. With the bulk of the Roman army occupied, the southeast of Britain was left vulnerable. Boudica's first target was the Roman colony of Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester. It was a symbol of Roman oppression, a city built for retired Roman soldiers on land confiscated from the Trinovantes. It housed a hated temple dedicated to the former Emperor Claudius, the very man who had conquered their lands. Boudica's army, a furious, vengeful horde, descended upon the city. The Roman veterans inside were unprepared and vastly outnumbered. They sent a desperate plea for help, but only 200 ill-equipped soldiers arrived. It wasn't enough. The rebels stormed Camulodunum, burning it to the ground and slaughtering its inhabitants. Archaeological evidence today confirms this, showing a thick layer of burnt red and black ash from that period, which historians call the Boudican destruction layer. News of the disaster spread panic among the Romans. The 9th Legion, Legio IX Hispana, commanded by Quintus Petilius Cerialis, marched to relieve the city, but they were too late. Boudica's warriors ambushed them in the open countryside, overwhelming the Roman infantry and annihilating them. Cerialis himself barely escaped with his cavalry. The message was clear. Boudica's army was not just a disorganized mob. They were a formidable fighting force capable of defeating a Roman legion in open battle. With her victory fueling the rebellion, Boudica turned her sights on Londinium, the bustling commercial heart of Roman Britain, which we now know as London. Suetonius Paulinus, hearing of the catastrophe, raced back from Wales with a small force. He reached Londinium before Boudica, but assessing the situation, he made a brutal but strategic decision. The city was indefensible with his limited number of troops. He couldn't save it. He ordered it abandoned, taking with him anyone who could travel. Those who stayed behind the old, the infirm, and those who refused to leave faced the full fury of the advancing rebel army. Like Camulodunum, Londinium was burned to the ground. The Boudican destruction layer is also found beneath the streets of modern London, a silent testament to the city's fiery destruction. Tacitus reports a gruesome scene of slaughter, with no one spared. Next came Verulamium, today's St. Albans. It was a town of pro-Roman Britons, and it met the same fate. Sacked, burned, and its people killed. In these 3 cities, Tacitus estimates that some 70,000 Romans and their allies perished. Boudica's rebellion had become a whirlwind of destruction, systematically erasing the Roman presence from the southeast of Britain. By now, Suetonius Paulinus had regrouped his forces. He had gathered the 14th Legion, part of the 20th, and auxiliaries from nearby garrisons, amounting to a force of about 10,000 highly trained, disciplined soldiers. He knew he couldn't let Boudica dictate the terms of engagement any longer. He needed to force a decisive battle, and he needed to choose the ground carefully. He found the perfect spot, somewhere along the Roman road known as Watling Street, though the exact location is still debated by historians. He chose a position in a narrow gorge, with a forest to his back, preventing any attack from the rear. The open plain in front of him meant that Boudica's vast army would have to funnel towards his much smaller force, negating their numerical advantage. The Britons, confident after their string of victories, arrived in massive numbers. Cassius Dio claims they numbered over 200,000, though this is likely an exaggeration. They brought their families with them in a long train of wagons, which they arranged in a crescent shape at the rear of their army, blocking their own line of retreat. It was a gesture of supreme confidence. They were there to witness a final, glorious victory. Before the battle, both leaders addressed their troops. Boudica, riding in a chariot with her daughters, gave another impassioned speech, reminding her warriors they were fighting for freedom, not for a tyrant's power. Suetonius, in contrast, gave a calm professional address to his legionaries. He told them to ignore the noise and the numbers of the enemy. He instructed them to hold their formation, throw their javelins, their peel, and then advance in a tight wedge, using their short swords and shields to devastating effect. The battle began. The British army surged forward in a massive wave, shouting war cries. The Roman legionaries stood firm, silent. As the Britons came within range, the Romans unleashed a perfectly timed volley of heavy javelins. The pila pierced the Britons' shields, weighing them down and rendering them useless, and tore through their unarmored ranks, causing chaos and confusion. Then Suetonius gave the order to advance. The Romans moved forward in their classic wedge formation, a disciplined, armored killing machine. They punched through the disorganized British lines. The tightly packed Roman infantry was lethal in close-quarters combat. The Britons, fighting as individuals rather than a cohesive unit, were no match for the professional Roman soldiers. The battle turned into a slaughter. The Britons tried to flee, but their escape was blocked by the very wagons that had brought their families to watch the expected victory. Pinned against this barrier, the rebels' men, women, and even the pack animals were cut down. Roman historians claim that 80,000 Britons died that day for the loss of only 400 Romans. While these figures are almost certainly skewed in Rome's favor, the outcome was undeniable: a catastrophic defeat for Boudica. Her army was destroyed. Her rebellion was crushed. Her dream of a free Britain was over. According to Tacitus, Boudica, rather than face the humiliation of capture and being paraded through the streets of Rome, took her own life by poison. Her final act was one of defiance, choosing her own death over submission. In the aftermath, the Romans enacted brutal reprisals. Suetonius swept through the lands of the rebel tribes with fire and sword. Famine followed, as the Britons had not planted crops that year, expecting to live off Roman stores. It was a grim end to a bloody chapter. Eventually, Rome realized that brutality alone would not secure Britain. Suetonius was replaced by a more conciliatory governor. A new policy of pacification and Romanization began, one that would shape the province for the next 300 years. Boudica's rebellion, though ultimately a failure, was not forgotten. It served as a stark warning to Rome of the price of arrogance and cruelty. For centuries, she was a footnote in Roman histories, but she was rediscovered during the Victorian era, when another powerful queen, Victoria, sat on the British throne. Boudica was recast as a national heroine, an icon of British courage and love of liberty. Today, her statue stands proudly in London, near the Houses of Parliament, on the banks of the River Thames. She is depicted in her war chariot, a fierce, defiant figure, a timeless symbol of a people's fight against tyranny. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the past.